Let's see. Alright. The voice is relatively okay-ish. Now we do the usual and send this everywhere. I've also made the mistake of not propagating this using the community tab. I swear, I've been waiting so long to get the community tab, and once I got it, I didn't really use it, which is a damn shame. To have the community tab and never use it. However, lately, a lot of things have been on my mind. That being said, now let's send this to everybody who'd like to watch, including people who may or may not be a little bit annoying, but everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome. Let me just send it here, and I'm gonna sit right now. I'm gonna open the chat, set it on all messages, take a deep breath, and start. So, first things first, I'd like to wish my viewers and subscribers, especially the adherents to the Muslim faith, my Muslim brothers and sisters, very happy month of Ramadan. Ramadan Kareem, everyone. Hopefully you're enjoying it with your families, fulfilling your spiritual duties. No, this is not a debate, Dungeons and Dragons. This is a conversation, a discussion, okay? I talk, you guys talk through the chat, we discuss topics about a general theme. This is more of a, how do you call it, a fruitful discussion. Actually, here's a funny thing. I chose tonight of all nights because tonight marks 2 weeks since the start of Ramadan. Basically, it's been half of the month is over, and we still have the other half. Regrettably, I haven't really enjoyed as much as I should. I've been preoccupied with exams, and I will be preoccupied with exams as well towards the end of the month. But that does not stop us from enjoying quality time with our families, our loved ones, and think about what this month means. As well, I'd like to point out that soon enough, it's going to be Easter for the Catholic and Protestant Christians, and a week later, I believe, for the Orthodox Christians. So, early happy Easter for all of you, ladies and gents. And with these formalities out of the way, let's talk a little bit about faith. Faith, believing in something. Having a little faith in something. Faith is, at least to me, the way I see it is... Oh, hello, Nestor Macno. I mean, it's the same with Easter. It's all like familial time, you know, spending time with your family. That's right, you know, spending time with your family is part of any tradition, part of any, you know, it's kind of more incorporated within religious values. Such as, for example, Akrim Abaka wa Ummaka in Arabic means, you know, be generous towards your... No, it's not be generous. It's basically treat your parents in a just manner. You know, these are general values you see incorporated in a lot of traditions and a lot of religious festivities, religious occasions. Now, to me, faith generally is a good thing. Now, what is faith? How can we define faith? Faith, you know, the easy answer is believing in something. Faith is to believe in something's existence, or believing in values. For example, believing that maybe your team is gonna win. You have faith in something. It is a positive. Oh, it's always a positive thing. You have faith in someone, faith in something, faith in a code of ethics, that this will work, this is right, and this will happen. For example, having faith that the righteous always win at the end, that the bad people eventually will be punished. For example, you have faith in the system, faith that the system in place will serve justice. Now, it can also be a road to delusions. Deluding yourself that everything is alright, everything is going fine, and you have faith in the system. But once you lose that faith, you feel like you've been hit by a train, followed by a cement truck, and then somebody threw a fucking car off the roof with a piano inside the trunk. It's a really heavy toll, I'd imagine. It's a belief system that has more of divine connections with one. It's more spiritual awakening in one's true soul, or feeling that you believe in divine hand. That is, yes, that is one definition. That is one definition if you're going through the religious path, which is, it's not a bad definition. Now, Karl Marx once said that religion is the opium of the people. However, he is always misquoted on this subject, because the actual quote is much longer. He says religion is the hope in a hopeless world, the light in a dark place. Religion is the opium of the people. It keeps people pacified. And that's a point I want to discuss, actually, because I notice a lot of my viewers, a lot of my subscribers are more on the left wing of politics, such as myself. And this is a point of discussion in a lot of left-wing or socialist talking circles, discussion circles. Is faith or religion acceptable under socialism, or are religious people real socialists or not? And does even recognizing religious freedom is supporting fascism? I've seen some, I won't say arguments, but some statements regarding that thing. They could be right, they could be wrong. Well, it's not much of an argument, it's just a statement. If we are going with life, I think it would be more or so split between Stoicism, which is the idea that there is a light within the tunnel, or the other side, which is nihilism, which is interest in oneself. Well, that is also a point of content, point of discussion, more like, I'm using a wrong term here. Nihilism versus optimism. Where nihilism would lead us, where optimism would lead us. These are a lot of things that we need to discuss as well. No, we're just throwing ideas left and right. We can also talk about religious indoctrination. We can also talk about faith as a tool for the oppressed. We can talk about liberation theology. We're not going to bash religion at all. I'm not here to bash religion. I am actually pretty much religious myself. I'm a religious Muslim. I do believe in God, or, if you want to get technical, our own interpretation of a deity. I do believe in respect for all religions, however, and I do believe in peaceful coexistence, and only violence in self-defense. We can talk about a loving deity, the idea of a loving deity, which is really an interesting thing with a lot of takes on it. But let's roll back a little bit. Let's start with, once more, faith and religion. Now, mostly my fields of expertise is Abrahamic religions. Now, I'm a Muslim myself, and I did grow up in a Catholic school. I did go to a Catholic school, graduated from it, and I was very darn good at Catholicism, believe it or not. There was this one time we had in 5th grade a nun that would go from class to class telling students, "Be like Badar boy! Be like Badar boy!" To the point my classmates came to me and said, "What did you do to that nun? Like, did you cast a spell on her or something? What the hell did you do?" And I actually had no idea. Okay? I was just being myself. Nihilism can also mean that life has no meaning. There's also absurdism, which views life as meaningless. However, its meaningless comes mostly from Sisyphus, which is symbolism for a cycle. A lot of philosophical terms are being thrown here, and let me tell you, philosophy was not particularly my favorite subject back in high school. I mean, it was fun. Philosophy was fun. However, I didn't particularly fancy the teacher. Yeah, the teacher. Sometimes the teacher is what makes or breaks a certain subject when you study it. And my philosophy teacher, yeah, let's just say I did not enjoy her as much as I enjoyed philosophy itself. And philosophy is quite extensive. You know, anybody with an opinion can become a philosopher. It can be such a headache as well to study. But I do, you know, it's actually a joke. It's actually a joke about philosophy majors. So basically, philosophy majors sort of go through this weird phase where they start studying philosophy and then they go, God is dead and we killed him. They go nihilist. They stop believing in anything and everything, fall into this pit of depression, and then somehow rediscover their faith. And now you don't know anything, you don't understand anything because God sent them a message. And what kind of message did it send them? You see, they went, you know, a guy goes to a forest, sees a bird. 2 days later, he goes to the same forest, sees the same bird. That is a sign from God. It's not because you are going to the same forest, near the same tree where the bird has its nest. I don't know. It's a sign from God. Philosophy majors are funny people like that. Luckily, or unluckily, I don't stumble upon them very often. I do find some psychology majors on the internet, you know. Not exactly at my university. The campus is pretty large. The nearest faculty to the faculty of law which I study in is the faculty of business. I shit you not. We have law and political science sharing the same building with the business administration. It's fascinating. There's this thing with the God is dead mantra. The idea behind it is that the idea of God is killed by the collective. God himself is not dead, but for the collective, he is dead. That's the whole point. So basically, once the collective stop believing, then to them, God is dead. Huh. Well, let's talk about this a little bit. Let's first about, you know, when we're talking religion and faith, what's the basic level of it all? What's the basic level of it all? Believing in a higher power, no matter what that higher power is. Okay, in Abrahamic religions, it's God, with different interpretations within each religion. For example, there's the Holy Trinity for Christians, but there's the only one God for the Muslims. That's for the Abrahamic religions. That's the higher force that we believe in. It's God. Now, for other religions, you know, polytheistic religions, for example, the ancient Greeks, the pagans have multiple gods. Hindus, Buddhists, they have different interpretation of a higher power, of a higher plane of existence. And the basic level to any religion is believing that they do exist, having faith in them. So let's start with this idea. What does a higher entity, a higher divine power exists. Okay, I'm going to say what I believe in. I'd like to hear everybody's comments, everybody's opinions on the matter. So, as a Muslim, do I believe in a higher power? May Allah awaken the people and let them see the evil doings of Israel and the United States. I knew I shouldn't have posted it in the guy's Discord server. I'd get shitposts and memes, but hey, I thought that insights from everybody would be lovely, so here's one insight, a meme. So, to me, does a higher power exist? Does a God exist? To me, I have absolute faith there's a higher entity that exists. It's not to say that I didn't have certain doubts at certain points in life, at certain stages, that is guaranteed to happen, everybody, because we have free will and rational thinking. Most of us have the capacity to analyze things and question things, which is good. Questioning is good. Following blindly is bad. Understanding what you follow, what you have faith in, is absolutely good. And that's something I notice a lot in many religious family, overly zealous religious families, to the point that it's pretty fucking creepy. For example, we keep hearing these very horror stories that parents doing awful stuff to their children so they behave, do as you're told to, do not question it, fear God, fear God, fear God, because God is vengeful and will kill you in your state. This is a lot of bullshit. The way I was raised is to believe that God is merciful, loving, forgiving, and just in his judgment. So I grew up loving God, not fearing him, but invoking his wrath. Fear of committing something that is very awful, very bad, that is punishable both in this plane of existence and in the higher plane of existence. Call it Judgment Day, call it heaven, hell, purgatory. So that's my angle of things. I do believe in God. Yes, I do believe in the existence of a higher being, because it's just impossible. To me, it is impossible that all of this creation, all of this universe, to be just a coincidence. Okay, there are so many smaller details, so many things change and shift and grow and die and evolve through time, through space, depending on a lot of things. It is such a immense reality that we live in. We haven't even discovered everything on our planet, yet alone everything in the space that surrounds our planet. So it cannot be chance. Some things can be coincidences, some things can be nothing, just happen like that. But I do hate that kind of reasoning, because things have a reason. Everything have a starting point, development and an end. It's not a coincidence. And the fact that you see that every single day in your life, you feel it, you understand it, on a certain mental capacity, as much as we as humans can understand, depending on our faculties. A scientist would understand way more about some more details than the average person. But all of this, and you're telling me this is a coincidence. I refuse to believe that. I refuse to believe that. Because it doesn't add up. I'm a person that adores common sense, and that is not common sense. Something created us. Someone, a force of nature, something created us. We're not here by chance. Because if we're talking a chance, we could have went so many different ways. Why is it that in our solar system, at least in our galaxy maybe, there is this area of viability in space, and we so happen to just be in it? If we were just a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, we'd be either scorched earth or dying in the cold. It's there's way too much coincidences that allow us, our planet, and other planets throughout the universe to exist. And I refuse to believe it's coincidence. Problem is that God is not a hateful being. However, he can hate and love. Without those two, the evil wouldn't exist. I've been always an atheist. However, once I converted to Orthodoxy, I followed a more natural thought. Well, do you believe in this, that God is constantly interacting with us? Now, okay. So we're going to start this bit by bit. We're going to start this bit by bit. Okay. Now, if okay, someone sent me a meme. I'm not going to comment on it. Thank you very much. Anyway, so when it comes, okay, let's go with this reasoning piece by piece, step by step. So the first step is that, let's say that's what I believe, but if you don't believe in it, that's alright. You have freedom of believing or not believing anything you want. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that there is a higher entity, there is a deity overlooking us, that created us, a force that we don't understand that created us. Does that deity interact with us, or did it create us and leave us to our own doing or undoing? That's a very interesting subject, which really enters through the idea: is there a loving deity or a vengeful deity? And that has become very apparent recently in the earthquakes that took place in Turkey and Syria. Is that there's a lot of people saying that these are signs of God, that God is angry, that God wants to awaken the people to remember that they should be worshippers. However, there are a lot of people that disagree with that, including scholars, religious scholars. I would say God has given enough power to us. He has interacted before in the Old Testament. However, in the New Testament, He is more inclined for us to follow our own path, whether it is good or bad. Nature equates to God. Well, that is one way to look at it, that nature equates to God. I've actually talked to someone who is not particularly religious. They are spiritual, however. They do not adhere to a certain religion, but they are spiritual. And I do believe that God is the universe, that universe equals God, and the powers of the universe that affect us through, stars and signs and ghosts and spirits and that kind of stuff. I'm a little bit, sort of skeptical at times, but I keep an open mind a little bit about those stuff. A little bit. Is that the powers of this universe is actually God interacting with us. So, here's my take on the matter. God did send us messengers, did send us prophets by the thousands. Not all of them, possibly not all of them are mentioned, but the major ones are mentioned in the scriptures. And a lot of people would say that scriptures are written by people long time ago, but I'll get to that in a bit. We're still reasoning this bit by bit, step by step. So here you have this deity that created us and supposedly sent us messengers. Each religion believes in a certain type of message. Even the Mormons have a messenger of their own. Buddhists had Buddha. the Abrahamic religions had the prophets, the saints, even the Shia Muslims, as well as the prophets. They say there were the Imams. Do reconsider giving us some input on the great issue. I will not discuss a meme. This is a serious discussion. I'm not going to discuss a meme. The power of the universe is also quite natural in its way. However, when it comes to interfering, he only communicates to those who truly believe in him. Well, when it comes to communication, some people say, believe that God is more subtle in how he communicates with humans. Now, personally, I believe that we were given free will, and we were handed the messages that the prophets had sent, had delivered, and we were free to believe in those messages or not to believe. And that is apparent in history. Throughout history, you can see many examples. We have the free will. However, we also have fate. I do believe in fate and I do believe in free will. And how do these two things correlate yet also contradict? Here's the point. We were given, for the sake of argument, we were created by a higher power. That higher power gave us free will, right? However, that higher power also dictates our fate. And how can this happen? How can predetermination exist adjacent to free will? And that's a way to look at it, is that when we are born and as we grow up, we start making decisions. The moment we start realizing what's right and what's wrong is when our paths begin to diverge. We have a lot of paths to go through life. The moment we are born, some of these paths become blocked because of the realities that we live in, possibly because of our countries of origins, possibly because of our families, our lineage, our religion, our ethnicity, language, financial situation. Some of these paths will be blocked to us. But we continue to march forward. And we start making decisions, free decisions of our own making, of our own reasoning. And these decisions lead us, they start narrowing the paths that we can go off. So for example, I decide one day to quit studying law and go and study computer science. The path for me to become a lawyer that was in my fate has disappeared. So now I'm going through another path that is also in my fate, that has nothing to do with the first one, because I made a conscious decision to block a certain path and move through the second one. And these different paths, these different scenarios that we have for the future, they start to disappear one by one as we grow old, as we make more decisions, more free decisions. Now, of course, sometimes some things are out of our control, and they do affect our choices. They do affect the paths that we can tread on in life, and those are, considering these are outside our own control, they can be considered as fate. For example, you're walking one day and an earthquake happens. You injure yourself. You have one bad leg for the rest of your life, which hinders some of the things that you could have done. For example, being an athlete in the Olympics. These are outside your outside your control. And no matter what path you have taken, this probably would have been always in your fate, always the thing that will happen in your life. So in that sense, there is fate, but that fate is also affected by free will. Because a lot of people like to say that use fate as a scapegoat. Like, oh, it is my fate to become a drug dealer. It is my fate to become a murderer. God made me this way. I am evil because this is who I am. And I'd say that this is coward behavior. People are not taking responsibility for their own actions, be it good or bad. They just say it's fate. Blame fate. So in that sense, when we say there is fate alongside free will, these are not so much contradicting ideas as I have just described. So we cannot really exactly use it to say that whether God does interact with us as humans or doesn't, and left us to our own devices. I'd say there's no overt interaction, but there is subtle nods and nudges, for example, we pray. We pray for things to get better, for someone who's sick to recover, someone who has financial woes to manage to pay his debts, someone who has a very hard exam and they're a little bit stressed about it. You just wish for the best and pray that the exam doesn't go really terribly, or something doesn't hinder doing the exam. For example, praying that nothing stands in the way of getting a certain promotion. So people do pray, and God does make things, I believe God does make things a little bit better for us. Simplify things, make them a tad bit easier at times. Answers prayers. God is forgiving. God is not vengeful. Unless you are a terrible human being, then there is vengeance, but vengeance more like in the afterlife, when it's the hour of judgment. Then judgment happens. Then the one who deserves to be punished will be punished. But what about us here on earth? Does God punish people on earth? Well, as I said, it's more subtle. In the way that I see it, it's more subtle. A few nudges here and there makes things easier probably for the good guys, make things a bit harder for the bad guys. But it's not an overt interference, because at the end of the day we still have free will. What good is this free will that God gave us if we were just going to be puppets? However, the idea that the judgment happens in the afterlife, what about us here on earth? It opens an interesting question, but let's read the chat a little bit. Thanks to the cowardice excuse for, it's in my faith to exterminate this amount of people. Atheists form and would use religion as a scapegoat as well to solidify their position. Yes, that is something I want to mention, anti-theism. But let's start with a criticism sometimes of religious institutions as a religious person. From this point of a religious person, and not from the point of an atheist or an anti-theist for that matter. And from that point we will delve a little bit into socialism and religion. So we start with the idea that is being repeated a lot, that we hear a lot in the Arab world, is الفقراء لهم الجنة. It's more in Egyptian. الفقراء لهم الجنة. The poor people have heaven. Heaven is for the poor. And it's something that I think that the Bible touched upon. It is easier for a camel to go through a needle than for a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. And while it is a good thing, it's a good sentiment, it's a good sentiment that the people that have toiled all their lives on earth will get to enjoy the simple people, the people who barely live, who work hard to live day by day, that in the end there is compensation for their hardships through heaven. But what about us today? So the poor people of today, the poor people on earth don't have anything on earth. They just have the heavens. I say that um, here comes the idea of the opium of the people. It's when religious institutions or religious figures ally with the rulers, an alliance of authority with spirituality, an alliance of capital with religious authority. And what happens is basically the rulers will guarantee a lot of, shall we say, privileges for the class of religious institutions, religious scholars, and whatnot. In turn, the religious scholars will keep the people pacified and keep protecting the rulers, and that is very apparent in many places. For example, the Orthodox Church in the Russian Empire, or for example, how in countries many people will use religious figures to suppress any criticism of them. If you criticize me, you are going against your religion, you are going against God himself, which is a very, very, very horrible tactic. It's something that a fascist will try to pull to solidify their rule. But I could just sit here and call a lot of bad things fascism. But fascism is pretty much an economic model more than just a political one. But it's one of the facets of fascism. I mean, Mussolini, for example, called himself the protector of Islam, and as well made a deal with the Pope to become the protector of Catholics in the East. Mussolini was using religion. Franco was using the Catholic Church as well. We've already talked about the Russian Empire using the Orthodox Church. Some rulers during the Islamic caliphates, the Umayyads, for example, using religion to justify their existence or their atrocities. However, it is worthy to know that while divine rule, as the idea that the king is chosen by God to rule, as it has been a thing in the medieval European era, it hasn't been exactly the same thing in the Far East. In China, for example, ancient China, there was the idea of the mandate of heaven. We hear about the mandate of heaven a lot, but what exactly is the mandate of heaven? What exactly is the mandate of heaven? That's actually something that I discussed with a friend not too long ago. The mandate of heaven is basically the ruler is bestowed the graces of the heavens upon him to rule. He has divine rule. Yes, he's ruled by the power of the heaven. However, if the kingdom begins to enter an era of corruption and decline and natural disasters, these point to the ruler losing this grace, losing the mandate of heaven, and thus needing to be deposed for a new ruler. And while it's a little bit weird for an earthquake to happen one day and the next day you are replaced by your evil twin brother, who will make life very miserable for the rest of the people, but nothing happens in his rule, so everything is fine and dandy. It is a little bit I do not agree with that, but it's one way to look at it. And these ideas do a little bit resemble John Locke's idea when it comes to the development of the state. Thomas Hobbes was the guy who came up with the police state, that humans are naturally evil to each other. Therefore, the monarch should have absolute power to protect people from each other. Now, Jean Locke said that people are naturally good, but the circumstances that they are thrown in forces some of them to be evil. Therefore, there should be a ruler with a strong capabilities to protect people. However, at the same time, if that ruler becomes too much of a tyrant, he should be deposed. Now let's see the chat a little bit. When it comes to religion, I always have to tell my Muslim part of my family believe in Allah, but in a more moderate, not extremist view, and all I get is laughter, so get called an atheist. Huh. When it comes to fascism, it can be both atheistic and theistic. However, as for Franco, he wasn't a fascist. A fascist would deny capitalism. Franco welcomed capitalism. Well, actually, fascism can have capitalism. The Nazi Party, for example, did take capitalist policies. It did not oppose capitalism. There is a very good video about this very topic by a channel called Second Thought. Second Thought makes interesting videos about socialism. I do recommend watching them. They're usually 20 minutes long. It's good if you're having a snack, eating lunch by yourself, you want to watch something, watch one of his videos. They're pretty much, they're entertaining and informational, and, pretty much fascism can be capitalist. And capitalism in decay is fascism. And that is a proven point. I mean, that is something that the socialists have realized after World War I, when instead of capitalism in decay leading to socialism, it led to fascism, which did need socialism to combat. So, let us check what some have sent us. I have a presentation, canonical law. What do you think? What do you call it? It's interesting. Someone is asking me on the server how the presentation about church law looks. We're talking about faith. Now, isn't that quite a nice coincidence? So, I said that unfortunately religion can be co-opted by the ruling class to pacify people and prevent revolt against their rule, which might paint religion as just a tool of oppression. And this leads us to religion and socialism. Many socialists would believe that religion should be eradicated, atheism should be applied, religion should be wiped out from society. Some others believe in secularism, freedom of religion, however, separating church and the church from politics. Now, some would rather have a religious institution rulings, however, for the good of the people and not for the ruling class. There are a lot of different socialistic ideas, and a lot of socialists sometimes start going from religion to justify socialism. Some go from Christianity, some go from Islam, some go from Buddhism, and here and there and everywhere. It's really interesting because it points out that human nature is pretty much socialism. Many people would say that capitalism is in human nature. However, pretty much human nature is socialism. And the argument that capitalism is in human nature and socialism will fail because of human nature is also a topic of discussion from the channel Second Thought. I'm not going to link all the videos here, just really recommend checking out that channel. I occasionally check it out. It's very, very, very nice. Now, as we can see that a lot of religious folks in the past, modest, humble, pretty much the thing that comes to mind when you say religious, pious person, a pious, modest, humble person, that they preached and tried to establish egalitarianism. You know, that there's no difference between people, that people should share among each other, that people should be good to each other, and it's something that every religion has. I believe every religion has that, mostly. But sometimes, unfortunately, because of this alliance of the religious institution with the ruling class, we see that a lot of people are only taught how to worship, how to listen, but not what they have as rights. They're just taught what you have as obligations, but you're not really taught what you have as rights. This is why I say, as a religious person, and through this debate of socialism, I look at liberation theology. Martin Luther King, for example, he was more left-wing than what the American media tried to whitewash him in the future. You know, they say he would have been a conservative Republican nowadays. No, simply that Martin Luther King wasn't all love and peace and no. Martin Luther King was more than that. He had some just violence to his movement, as well as Malcolm X. Malcolm X that have, through converting to Sunni Islam, had moved past his prejudices, his black supremacist prejudices. I will not call it black supremacist prejudices, but basically segregation or anti-white sentiment. He still saw that segregation is awful. He still saw that a lot of people in power are white, right-wing individuals that are, dictating laws against people. But however, he did not harbor hate towards white people themselves. However, by the institutions that keep white governance and segregation, even apartheid, in other countries. Malcolm X, his liberation theology, he sought Islam as liberation theology. Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. sought Christianity as liberation theology. And as you can see, a lot of people incarcerated within the United States of America, a lot of mainly minorities, you see a lot of them converting to either Christianity or to Islam, trying to reform themselves, to rediscover themselves, to liberate themselves spiritually through faith. And those liberation theology movements do inspire a lot of change. They do inspire movements of revolt, movements of open revolution. There are, for example, let's take Iran under the Shah before the revolution of 1979. The main movers, the main people that led the revolution were the religious scholars. They led the revolution and had pretty much militarized society against the Shah. They started a revolution. They supported this revolution and ousted a tyrant from power. Now, whatever happened after that, I'm not going to say that, because pretty much a lot of people voted for the establishment of the Islamic Republic through a democratic referendum, including minorities of different ethnicities and religious groups, including women. The circumstances back then maybe are different than today, and I'm not going to comment today because, well, there is both just movements of protest and they are also being infiltrated by saboteurs, let's just say opportunists. They try to cause havoc through protests. They infiltrate protests and ruin them to achieve their own personal agendas. And this is awful. I hate opportunism. I hate when people are demanding their rights, and then some fucking group infiltrates them and fucks shit up. So is religion bad? I see that as a socialist and as a religious person, I see that we need, as a people, as socialists, to reclaim religion from the ruling class, to reclaim religion as a tool of liberation, not a tool of oppression that is in the hands of the capitalist elite, but in our hands as the working people, as the as the poor people, as the oppressed people, to use faith and religion to establish paradise on earth, in a sense, to make lives better on earth, and therefore make things easier once we reach the afterlife. Because a lot of the problems such as theft, a lot of these problems that are caused by capitalism, you see, by the deterioration of the economy, that can be handled better under a socialist economic model, granted that there are the qualifications for such a model. There'll be a lot less sin when the people's needs are met. Do you think God cares if I smoke weed? As we say in Arabic, Allahu Alam, God knows. I'm not going to say anything, but just be careful of addiction. Anything can be addicting, and all addictions are bad. Usually drugs would sway your judgment, make you lose inhibitions, do some things that you probably wouldn't do otherwise. Now, some people handle alcohol and narcotics differently, but as a general idea, it is better not to get hooked on anything, and better to just be sober. Sobriety is the best. At least you get to face the horrors of reality heads on, because they're always going to be there. If you delude yourself that they don't exist, well, you're the one losing, because they're still there. They're still haunting you. So you need to still face them eventually. So, what was I saying again? Yes, reclaiming religion as a tool for liberation and not oppression. And I'd like to give the example of Jamal Abdel Nasser, second president of Egypt. We all know who Nasser is. Pretty much all of us know. And I talk about him a lot. Abdel Nasser was a very much religious person, was a highly religious Muslim. He did the Hajj, he went on a pilgrimage to Mecca twice. He expanded the Al-Azhar Mosque into a university, not only for religious studies, but for all kinds of sciences. Quran channels on the radio became a thing. He commissioned unifying all the doctrine in the Hanafi doctrine in Sunni Islam to be unified in a library together, for easier access. He also as well did a lot of things for Christians in Egypt, building monasteries. Also, he built a lot of mosques. A lot of mosques were built during his reign, and he also made it a point that Egypt should support. Egypt has a role to play in the Arab world, in Africa, and in the Islamic world as a leading country that need to support the struggles of African, Arab, and Muslim nations. However, he was also a secularist. He was also someone who wanted to separate religion from politics, who called out people who told them merchants of faith, who were using faith as a scare tactic, who were using faith to gain power, who were using faith to protect the ruling class. That's where he clashed with groups such as the Muslim Brotherhood. And what has happened in recent decades in the Middle East had a lot of people questioning religion and the validity of religion, as well as how religion had evolved in the West, especially in the United States of America, and how demented and evil it can be, some of these religious institutions in the United States. Far right, and how different people view things differently. But I do not think that being religious or supporting religion is fascism. I do believe that people have the right to believe in whatever they want. They have freedom. They have free will given to us by our Creator, as I personally believe. Therefore, since we do have free will, we can choose to believe or to not believe. You know, some people break away from the faith that they were born in and convert to something else, or decide to not to believe at all. Or people that are not quite sure if they, if like they're not quite sure if they believe or don't believe. You know, agnostic people, or yeah, there's different people who believe in different things. And as long as there is a ground level of respect to each other as human beings, there shouldn't be any issue. I've actually been, I've heard a lot of hurtful things um, by some people because of my religion in some socialist spaces, unfortunately, and regrettably so. But I do believe in religious tolerance above all, except in two cases. The first case is anti-theism. Um, Anti-theists are weird because in some places they do open churches to preach in them how religion is bad. So basically they're making hating religion our religion. So it's kind of counterintuitive, it's contradicting itself. And anti-theism, in a lot of cases, especially towards the third world, is rooted through racism and a white savior complex, in a sense. Like, oh, look at these stupid backwards people, they still believe in superstitions. Let us teach them, let us civilize them. The same people whose ancestors came and said, let's preach the word of the Lord through colonialism, are coming here today, let's preach the word of there's no Lord through colonialism, or neo-colonialism. This holier than thou, okay, not holier than thou, but this superiority complex they have, the savior mentality. It is very toxic and very disgusting. And when you attack someone's religion, someone's faith, someone's culture, or someone's person for their choices, it's not tolerance. It's the opposite of tolerance. It is horrible, and I oppose anti-theism with everything I got, because I'm a religious person. I do want to be because I treat people who respect me with the same respect. Give me respect, I give you respect. You don't give me respect, I owe you no respect at all. You attack me, I have to go on the defense. Violence, I listen. I am a pacifist. I'm a pacifist. However, you cannot be a pacifist if you are not ready to fight. Because then you are not no pacifist. You are just harmless. I believe in just violence, in self-defense, only in self-defense. If a battle is imposed on you, if someone is attacking you, you have the right and the responsibility to defend yourself. You either win or you lose, but at least you don't sit idly by. That is what you need to do. So if someone is not respecting you, you can, or arguing with you with bad faith, you don't have to just sit here and take it. You can leave. That's one way to diffuse a situation. You can say that, you can be rational and say, this is not a fruitful conversation, this is not a fruitful discussion, you are insulting me, I feel rather uncomfortable continuing this discussion, and this really shows how mature you are in such such conversations. Or you can also just, if someone attacks you, you have the right to punch them. If they try to touch you, punch you, you have the right to punch them back. If they start cursing you, I would not recommend this usually, but sometimes someone gets so angry and start cursing. Pretty much they started it, so it's free. It's open season. I don't know what to say here. Now, I do hate anti-theism. The second thing that I dislike is Satanism. Satanism sometimes is rooted in not exactly worshipping pretty much evil itself, but more so Satanism, in freedom. It's more of the freedom from this grasp of religious institutions that have been corrupted by immersions of faith. However, I believe that I do it the wrong way. Worshipping, a demonic entity for the sake of spiting the religious people. It's not a way. It's not the way to do it. I've actually ended a friendship of mine, or rather, that friend ended our friendship, because of this very topic. That friend, said that they became a Satanist now, and it makes sense to them. They use it as this is a freedom thing, and I kinda question. Is it like to spite religious people, or what's it about? Like that, I fundamentally, disagree with. I didn't curse that friend. I didn't act rude towards them. I just said that I don't quite understand in what way are they a Satanist, because there are so many ways that someone can claim to be a Satanist. But and that fundamentally I do not encourage the idea of Satanism. Well, that person gave me the cold shoulder. I tried to reach out time and time again. Eventually, they just blocked me, and well, it is unfortunate, but it is what it is. I dislike Satanism because worshiping evil itself is really uncomfortable. Or using its symbolism, it's iffy. It's iffy. But on the flip side, there are these overzealous people, and these people that try to force their religion on others, which it's not the attitude of a good neighbor. Even my bird agrees. Even little Smiley agrees that being holier than thou, is not a good idea, because from experience I've noticed that people that try and act overly religious usually tend to not be that much religious. Like they pretend to be religious, but they pretty much do things opposed to it, and it's basically back to the idea of immersion of faith. But the immersion of faith. What was I saying again? My line of thought was cut a little bit. Oh God. I remember it. Give me a moment. Yes. Okay. People tend to be, at times, unfortunately, religious in their worship part of religion. However, they are totally irreligious in the humanity part. And these things should coexist, because Islam doesn't only give you, for example, my own religion, Islam, doesn't only give you, you need to worship, and you need to pray 5 times a day, you need to fast during the month of Ramadan, you need to go to a pilgrimage in Mecca. It also gives you rights. For example, emancipation of slaves, it gives women financial times that at the time before Islam they were not existent, and did a lot of practices that were very much horrible for women. Add to it that Islam also dictates that there is no difference between an Arab and a non-Arab except in faith. So basically, there's no fundamental difference between people except in faith. The only difference that people should look at is through faith. But at the end of the day, we are all religious, and if For example, for those that are, kuffar, infidels, as they say, you know, the Quran says, tell them, I don't worship what you worship, you don't worship what I worship. No, there's nothing about it's a surah, it's a part in the Quran that is called Surah Al-Kafirun, I believe. Yes, it's basically this: I don't worship what you worship, you don't worship what I worship. There's no part about I'm going to cut your head off, and it just says I don't worship what you worship, you don't worship what you worship. I have my religion, you have yours. Which I believe it tends to explain, there should be a minimum of respect. There's no offense. A Muslim or a religious person shouldn't take the offense, but should be on the defense. If they are attacked, they must defend. And it is pretty relevant because the first battle in the history of Islam was a defensive battle, Ma'arakat Badr al-Kubra, the first battle between the Prophet and his followers against the tribe of Quraysh, the Prophet's own tribe, against Islam. Because pretty much when Islam was starting, it started peaceful. Tried all peaceful manners until the Prophet was forced to leave Mecca to Medina, and then after everything else failed, and when the Muslims started being persecuted, the Muslims fought back, and the Muslims fought back so hard, they defended themselves so hard, they practically won. So basically it shows us that violence is the last resort, and it should be resorted to in self-defense. There's a lot of things to see through religion. Jesus, for example, in Christianity, since Easter is coming, Jesus did say that that we are rightful to stand up for tyranny, even going as to open protest against tyrannical rules, tyrannical laws. That mercantilists for example, he chased out mercantilists in the temple. It shows that we should not allow measures of faith. So these religious figures and religion itself, at least in the Abrahamic faiths, especially Christianity and Islam, because these are this is where my expertise is, where my expertise are, and I don't want to talk here and there, so I can make a wrong take or say something that could lead to a misunderstanding. I will stick to what I know and stick to what most people who come here watching probably know as well, especially since Christianity and Islam are also two of the biggest religions on earth, as well as Hinduism. So it shows us that religion is not a tool of oppression, and it should not be a tool of oppression. Therefore, religion itself should not be fought. The people that should be battled against are these merchants of faith. And don't get me wrong, I am not against scholars. I'm not against religious scholars, people who can preach religion. I am against them having certain privileges that make them create a class of their own, a class that unites them, that put them with the ruling class as their protectors. This is a monopoly on religion. It becomes a monopoly on religion. This is wrong. However, a religious scholar that is modest, that is pious, doesn't care about financial gains, that doesn't care about privileges, and that also work to better society, I do believe that they should be there for spiritual guidance in society. I do not believe in erasing faith from society, in erasing spirituality from society. I do believe in secularism. Separate the church from the state. However, the church still has the right to operate. People have still the right to seek spiritual guidance. And in a perfect society, I'd say that there is positive spirituality, positive religiosity, coexistence of different faiths, because sectarian politics lead to nothing but destruction. lead to nothing but stagnation. In a country like Lebanon, where there are 18 different recognized denominations, there could be no one religion or one denomination controlling everything, and and because it will create discord. And it cannot be with the current system that I'm going with right now, which is separating, parliament, the government, and the highest seats of power, as well as positions in the public field, alongside religious lines. This is really terrible because it only reinforces this monopoly, merchants of faith, and the capitalist elite that they have on society, as well as it's completely horrible. It is completely horrible. It leads to more and more sectarianism and hatred and the conflict in a country that is so small, in a country that it should be a symbol of religious coexistence. When Lebanon finally becomes completely this message to the world of religious coexistence, then it truly becomes an immense threat for countries like Israel, or geopolitical entities that claim to be countries such as Israel. I need to pick my wording very well here. I am not recognizing the Zionist entity in no way, shape, or form. It is an apartheid occupation murdering Palestinian people and Arabs all around, with a record of human rights abuses. Back to our topic. Because, for Israel, which is based on, which is foundation, Zionism is religious superiority, superiority of Jewish superiority, the suppression of all other other religious groups, the suppression of other ethnicities, treating Arabs as Native Americans, except with the Native Americans and the Americans, there were vast areas that were not claimed. However, in the Arab world, these areas had people living on it. They just kick them out and take their place. All of this, and establishing apartheid, segregation through through a war machine. If it has a neighbor that is the example of religious coexistence, it will obliterate the entire foundation that Zionism is based on. That religions can coexist together. That the Jews or Jewish or people of adhering to the Jewish faith or Jewish people need a state of their own, and to realize that state, they need to massacre the people on there to preserve their existence there. If Lebanon does manage to move to secularism, which is something that I hope, it will really hurt Zionism where it counts, in its foundation. Now, unfortunately, this is a very lonely stream. There's not many people. I'm the only one online, it seems. Right now I'm talking, which doesn't make much for a conversation. Unfortunately, I couldn't manage to emulate the success of the first Let's Talk stream. However, I do hope I can manage to continue it. I think maybe I should advertise it a bit more. Um, okay. Another topic that I wanted to... oh, damn it. My throat is acting a little bit funny. Now, another topic I'd wish to touch upon would be a loving or a vengeful deity. The people that believe that God created us, or our deity created us, and it stopped, interacting with us, I do not believe that God is either vengeful or loving, that he's indifferent to us. This deity, this higher power, is indifferent to us. They are not malevolent, uh, but they're not, doing anything towards us. I personally disagree with such a statement, and I also disagree that God is vengeful. That all calamities are bad, are messages from God. That everything bad is a punishment from God. No, 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 no. Pretty much everything good, that is what I believe in, is that everything good, it comes from God. Everything bad, it comes from humans. And if you think about it, our our environment is changing. Out of natural disasters are occurring occurring more and more in our world. It's because of our own fault. It's for our own exhaustion of the natural resources of this planet, of this earth. um, this exhaustion of natural resources, and that we cannot say that this is a punishment from God, because in some places people have managed to live alongside these natural disasters, such as in Japan, for example. They are pretty much ready. They have the infrastructure to survive an earthquake nowadays. It's now not this big of a big calamity. It's just another fact of life. And people should not use fear mongering to bring people more to faith. This is a horrible tactic. Both, it's generally a bad idea. But is that a loving God? And that's something that I've also discussed with a friend of mine, not that long ago, not about a month ago, or 2 months ago, during these earthquakes that went on in Syria and Turkey. Is there a loving God? And my friend said, no, God is neither loving nor vengeful. He's indifferent towards us. But I don't believe otherwise. I don't believe otherwise. I believe that there is a loving God. Because we are not brought here in this world to suffer. We are here to make choices, preferably good choices, and to worship the entity that created us. At least from a religious perspective. We're not here just to be puppets. We're not playthings. We are human beings with mental capacity to rationalize things. We're at the top of the food chain. We are also we have free will, and free will to me, it's split between two things: the freedom of thought and the freedom of action. I believe Sartre. No, I believe maybe Sartre said, or maybe was somebody else. Forgot a bit of philosophy, but I think, therefore I am. Thinking makes me exist. Having a mind of my own, thoughts of my own volition. It means that I have the freedom of thought, that I exist as a sentient being. Now, my action can be limited. I could be enslaved, for example. I don't have the freedom of action. I don't have the freedom to enact on my own thoughts, on my own freedom of my own sentient ideas. But I have the free will, even though I do not have the capacity to exercise that free will. Freedom, to me, that freedom of thought is free will, and freedom of action is the power to exercise this free will. Once a slave is emancipated, is liberated, is free, now they can exercise freedom of that their their free will, because even though they had freedom of thought, they didn't have the capacity to act on them within their situation of being slaves. So now we do have free will. We do have a rational mind in most cases. And we just so happen to live in this fascinating universe filled with beauty on every little corner, and good things happening to people who do good. Do good things happen to you. They also say no good deed goes unpunished, but these are all different convergent points of views that may seem contradictory, but at the very end they do coincide in a single point, is that we live. And as long as we live, we will go through the bad, we will go through the good. And usually the bad is bad because of us, of our own actions, because of the actions of others, or because of forces that are outside of our powers, outside of our control. However, at the same time, through every dark situation, there is a certain light, there is a silver lining, there is good things that happen. I do believe that these are some of the ways that God helps us in these subtle ways. And you see, because at the end of the day, everything is a test for our own character. Everything is a test for our own character. Everything is a test for our own person. Life is full of struggles, they be it small or large. We circumvent that. It is a continuous struggle life, with the good, with the bad. And the good things that we seek through struggle, that we hold on to through faith, we'd like to believe that yes, God is out there looking after us. Even if in small ways, helping us along the way, God is there. God doesn't forget, and God is forgiving, God is just. Now, of course, this is all my own beliefs. And unfortunately, I do not have anybody right now in the live chat watching to give me their own interpretation or their own dissertation, their own dissertation of the subject, their own point of views, which is very unfortunate. It's really, 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 really unfortunate. But it is what it is. It is what it is. The good things for the faithful, they come from God. And we thank God in every second, every minute, every hour, every moment, for even making such a beautiful, beautiful world. And many will believe that God will not, interfere with us. And you just need to have a little faith. It depends on your views on the matter. But to me, it's more apparent that God does help. God does help in small or big ways. Because you see, there's miracles that happen in hospitals. People with abysmal hopes of survival somehow survive. People going out of tragic accidents and still continue to live their lives, even though they might be scarred, even though they might have a certain handicap. After that said accident, they continue to live and they continue to learn, and life doesn't end here. The very fact that they are alive is because God helped them. Fate is there for every one of us. And as I said, our free will can shape up fate in one way or the other. But it's outside of our control. And when fate strikes, well, God can help tremendously, or even a little bit. Unfortunately, I should have, for this very exact point, I should have prepared even far more. But unfortunately, I was tremendously busy in this last few weeks, and I actually did need to stream on this day because of the timing. The timing was a bit too perfect to pass it on, to not stream. But we do have a mind, we do have free will, we are on the top of the food chain, and we do live on a very beautiful planet, but we should not view ourselves as the center of the universe, because viewing ourselves as the limit to God's creation is really much of an insult to religion, because in this vast universe where scientists are still discovering planets and moons and places in other galaxies or in other solar systems that are viable, just like the Earth, with places so vast, with this so vast universe, we also, a lot of people will refuse to believe that we are alone. I refuse to believe that we are alone in the world. Maybe, and this is something that a lot of religious folks talk about, be it the past or the present, or in the future. There are probably civilizations light years away that are less, that are newer than us, therefore have less technological advancement, or are older than us and way more advanced than what we are at our current stage. Maybe they had their own types of religions. Maybe God sent them their own messengers. Maybe there's parallels to our religions in other worlds, in other planets, with other civilizations. Maybe they're also human, they're just like us, but just so happen to be on a different place. Or maybe they are a totally different species, that they also have they also have this free will, this freedom of thought and freedom of action, and this mind to rationalize things, that are also on top of their food chain, that may or may not know that we as humans exist on planet Earth. But right now, I don't think it's possible right now to meet them or to reach them. Maybe they'd like to reach us first. Or maybe they are avoiding us for whatever reason. Maybe they had wars far more destructive than ours. Maybe they have achieved world peace for them. Then what about us? Currently, we only have this planet. This little rock in the vast space. We are nothing but a drop in the cosmos. And if you see our world, how small it is, you know that it is our only place to live. It's our only home, and we must protect it with everything we have. We must preserve our environment. We must not exhaust the resources of nature to the ground. We must be better than this. Way better than this. And we must wake up as a population. And I do say this. This is part of faith. Faith is, for example, in Islam, you are not allowed to cut down a tree for fun. You are not allowed to kill an animal for fun. Because this is not yours. Okay, this is God's creation. You do not disrespect creation like this. You do not disrespect yourself as a human. You do not diminish yourself as a human. You do not kill animals for fun. You kill them out of necessities to eat. You do not start inhumanely slaughtering animals by droves. like the meat industry does, like the chicken and egg industry does. Little baby birds just thrown into meat grinding. It's fucking disgusting. This overproduction, this overproduction that is the result of the capitalist system. It's against faith, it's against religion. This destruction of nature for the sake of corporate profit is against faith. Capitalism itself, greed, money, the love and lust for money is against religion itself. From the beginnings of time still today, money, capital, exploitation has been an enemy to the faithful, to the pious, to the religious, to the righteous. In Islam, it is preferable to not be in debt. You are not allowed to put interest on loans. And it is better for you as the creditor to forgive somebody's debt than to make them indebted for you for life. And I actually read that this is in Sharia. This is in Sharia. I've actually looked a little bit through Sharia one time through a discussion about debts and repaying debts. Religion hates capital, and whoever says otherwise, is a merchant of faith. And this does bring me to a good point right now to more things about how religion can be progressive and not regressive. Hold on a second. Let's talk a little bit about something, since we're on the topic of faith and religion, something that I do want to express my views regarding it. The theory of evolution. The evolution theory. And a lot of people use this against religion, against the against creationism, is evolution versus creation. And it's a rather silly argument, even people who are faithful, who are religious, should know that by now. Is that we weren't born the way we were. Okay, we are the result of an evolution, but we are not quite the same monkey. We didn't originate from monkey. Maybe us and monkeys and other primates might have a common ancestor. After all, in the Quran, it is said that God did punish some people by turning them into monkeys. No, but if you think about it rationally speaking, I do believe in evolution. In evolution, as in there was an ancestor to humans. It's not a monkey, it's not an animal, but an early human. Probably Adam and Eve were that early human, and because of the material conditions that were around at the time, they had different physical features, way different physical features that we do have today. And as time progressed, as the human mind began to discover things and invent things that made life more easier, certain physical attributes changed to reflect that. Our ancestors in the Stone Age were much more physically capable and strong than us. They had a lot more endurance. They could climb trees with bare feet. Okay, they had so much endurance. However, nowadays we live in a more comfortable life, and progress is not bad. Progress is not bad. To live more comfortably. This is what progress leads to. Scientific progress. It leads to living more comfortably, and we changed and shifted to fit within through our own new reality. And our descendants would be very different from us. They would really be very different from us. They will evolve past our current physical features. They will have different physical features to reflect the conditions that are around them, be it genetic, material, scientific, and so on and so forth. So on and so forth. So, there is evolution. I do believe in creation. This again, this world, as I started by saying, this is not a coincidence. I refuse to believe that this world is not is a coincidence. It is not the work of a fascinating creator, of a higher power. However, I also do believe in evolution because this is rational thinking. This is rational thinking, and religion should encourage rationality, should encourage discovering, should encourage science. A lot of modern day science is based on the Islamic Golden Age and the discoveries and inventions that were achieved during it. And therefore, saying science is anti-religious is pretty much stupid, hands down. However, scientific progress should be kept within the boundaries of morality. Here is when religion should come in with the boundaries of morality, because sometimes science, without any boundaries, can go way too far and tries to justify itself by for the greater good, for the greater good. They say the end sometimes they say the end justifies the means, and sometimes I agree with that statement, as long as the means did not cause far more harm than the good the end would have provided. So science should be confined within morality. It should not be fought, it should not be attacked, but it should be still within the boundaries of morality. And this is where science and religion, they go hand in hand. I used to hear as a young guy that science is the enemy of religion from people that believe in science, okay? But on the contrary, science and religion coexist and work hand in hand. Science, religion encourages science, and science is kept through is being kept in check in moral within moral confinements through religion, or at the very least a code of ethics that is derived from religion. You see, you do not have to be faithful to be a good person. You do not have to be a religious person to be a good person. However, a lot of this code of ethics stems from religion. A lot of laws good laws stem from religion. There are some bad interpretations, there are some good interpretations. However, at the end of the day, violence in the name of religion is against religion. Mindless violence, murder of innocents, terrorism, whatever your religion is, even if you're irreligious. This is not a way to spread religion. This is not a way to defend religion. As I said, violence is important when it's used in self-defense. Are you being persecuted in a country because of your religion, in a sense that you are being beaten, you are being attacked, you are in threat of being murdered for your faith? You have the right to defend yourself. And it also baffles me how, for example, in some places in Europe, a lot of people will hate Islam because, terrorism, even though Muslims are the first victims of terrorism, of the so-called Islamic terrorism. We call it takfirism, takfiri terrorism. It's not faith, it's madness. It's servitude of evil. It's not religion. Oh, hello there. Um, Glad to hear you've made it, Booty Cat, or Bowdy Cat. Well, unfortunately, it's a little bit silent lately, but we've discussed a lot of things regarding faith, regarding religion, and I'd actually now would like to hear your opinion. Are you a religious person? What do you believe in the existence of a higher power, a deity, or an afterlife? What do you think about the notion that there's a loving God or a vengeful God, or there's just a God but that doesn't really interfere with the humans? What do you think? What do you think about all of these topics? Let me hear what you guys think. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You're a Quaker on paper, but you're 99.9% atheist. What's a Quaker? Let me Google that. Uh, there's the Quaker Oats guy, Quaker Oats. A member of a religious society of Friends, a Christian movement founded by George Fox and devoted to peaceful principles. Central to the Quaker beliefs is the doctrine of the inner light, or sense of Christ's direct working in the soul. This has led them to reject both formal ministry and all set of forms of worship. My Muslim cousins are coming over for Easter dinner this Sunday, so we aren't eating until sound. Well, that is beautiful. That is actually beautiful. It's Easter Sunday. It's Easter Sunday dinner, and it's dinner because Muslims are fasting. Now, this is a beautiful show of religious solidarity. Oh yeah, Northern Hemisphere late. Yeah. That's very super late in terms of when the sun sets. I'm sorry to hear that, but hey, stay strong, huh? You know, there's actually something fascinating going on in Palestine. Around this time, not only are the Muslims being persecuted by the Israeli occupation, but also Christians, and the solidarity between Christians and Muslims in Palestine, especially in the West Bank and Jerusalem, is beautiful. It's simply beautiful. I'd like to also point out um, the late Archbishop, may he rest in peace, Hilarion Capucci, a Syrian Catholic bishop from Archbishop from Aleppo, who was nicknamed the Defender of Jerusalem. He was sent to Jerusalem in the 60s, and he organized protests against the occupation. He helped during the fire of the Al-Aqsa Mosque when the Israelis set fire to it. He was a very respected and loved figure there, and he also would smuggle guns for the resistance, and became and had a he had a leading position in the PLO. Once the Israelis found out, he was thrown in jail and tortured. He went on a hunger strike, but eventually he was released and exiled. But his exile didn't last long. He did also negotiate the American hostage crisis with the Iranian government. He was sent there to be the mediator, but he was a supporter of the Iranian Revolution and said, do not give the hostages up until the Carter administration recognizes the PLO as the sole representative of the Palestinian people and not a terrorist organization. And that did happen. So, yay! Ilario Capucci also in his late years went on the flotillas that were headed towards Gaza to break the siege and was shot by the IDF on board the ships. And he had to go under the knife, as they say. Solidarity with Palestine, yes, solidarity. you know, he died and was buried in South Lebanon, close to Palestine. So yeah, the history of Christian Muslim solidarity is long in terms of Palestine. Even Palestinian resistance movements had Christian leading figures as well as Muslim leading figures. So that's cool. Yes, it does date back to the interwar period. The solidarity between Christians and Muslims against Zionism. That is true. Ah, well, congratulations. Congratulations. However, it's unfortunate that a lot of service workers need to rely on tips rather than a good salary. That is highly unfortunate. Um, it's a bonus for good. That is good. That is good. All power for people who work hard. You work alongside your studies. I am a full-time student. Luckily, my basic needs are met. I do live with my family, and luckily and thank God, I don't have to worry about things like roof above my head or food or water. Well, maybe there's a few problems with the roof, but you know, a lot of water damage at times. It can be scary to look at. But no, I do not work, and nowadays it's really hard to find work and good pay because of the inflation and the economic crisis that we're going through. So I do believe that I am very privileged within the context of my own country. I feel privileged, even though I'm in the so-called middle class. We're not upper middle class. We're just, pretty much holding on to the middle of the middle class. Thoughts on the Pope and the whole idea of a head of the entire religion type figure in general? Well, Shia Muslims have something like the Pope. It's Sayyid al-Qa'id, the leader in the spiritual leader in Iran. Well, it's not all Shias, some groups of them. You see, um, Islam has what we call maraja, imams, shaykh, sayyid, ayatullah, for example, ayatullah. Its position, that someone that have attended a very high level of religious studies. I'm not too sure about the Zaydis, but those that attended a certain level of insight into religion, a certain level of, understanding the doctrine of faith, they can become like a sort of spiritual guidance that people can follow. And one of the more progressive ones is the late Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Hussein Fadlallah. Sayyid Fadlallah hated the way a lot of politicians in Lebanon operate, or the corruption they have. He was a champion for the people, a champion for women's rights, for people's rights, and he opposed Zionism. He opposed senseless sectarianism. However, he was a supporter of resistance against Zionist occupation till the very end. He was supportive of every single resistance action against Zionist occupation. However, he was very much outspoken against terrorism. And for example, in 9/11, he condemned 9/11 in so many ways. Did the end of the caliphate with the end of the Ottomans leave the hole in the Sunni hierarchy structure? Well, there sure was an interesting position where people were trying to find someone to follow, someone to fill that void. But I do think that much like the Shiites, Sunnis also do have different maraja. There's the Hanafi doctrine, the Shafi'i doctrine, the Maliki doctrine, and the Ja'fari doctrine is the Shiite one, which has a lot of different interpretations. And you have the Salafists, you have the Wahhabists, and you have Shirazists, the Shirazi guys in Shia. They are, they're like Wahhabists, but the Shia version of them. So you have the good interpretations, the good people to follow, and the bad people, spray some poison. Personally, though, I do believe that as the caliphates went on and on, they became more of monarchies using the religious titles more than actual caliphates. The only caliphate in my book that was good was the first caliphate, the Rashidiyun, which had 5 caliphs, not 4. It had the 5th caliph was Imam Hassan, who was assassinated by the Umayyads and didn't get to rule that long. But pretty much the Rashidiyun were the best of the best, and Imam Ali, the 4th caliph, he was the one to try to avoid religious infighting as much as possible, and who wanted to give justice, justice to the people. He's the one that said, if poverty was a man, I would have killed him. Is it even remotely possible to find an Abbasid Sayyidi successor? Well, I'm not sure, but there are a lot of people with the title of Sayyid who are descendants of the Prophet. As you can see, after the Rashidun Caliphate, basically it just went downhill, where the Umayyads were aristocrats that they were at first pagans. They were opponents of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they saw Islam as a political tool and not a religion, as a tool to control Arabs, to be in charge. And their so-called caliphs were also not that good of a Muslims. One of them even ordered the murder of the grandson of the Prophet, which was an Islamic tragedy of the highest order. Everybody was hit by it. Sunnis, Shiites. Back then there was not the separation. There were some different currents in Islam politically, the followers of the house of the Prophet, the followers of the Umayyads here and there, but and their allies respectively, but the Umayyads pretty much fucked it up. They were aristocrats who took power, and they were kings. They were pretty much doing what divine rule went on in Europe. And pretty much the caliphate, by the time the Ottomans rolled in, who were 402 years of occupation by the Ottoman Empire. I'm glad the empire collapsed, because they brought the Arabs back in time so much, reversed a lot of progress. It was horrible. It was horrible. It pretty much regressed the Arab centuries back from where they were. And the Arabs, and by the time the European came, the Arab liberation movements were in full swing. The Arab liberation movements in the 20th century, or in the 19th and 20th century, didn't just appear like this when the Europeans arrived. They were already building up during the Ottoman days, because they wanted liberation of the Arab people once more, and progress and rebirth, a renaissance, which it's a little bit familiar if you listen to the Ba'ath party. Lest we forget the Korbodan Umayyads and their boy The Ottomans also had a lot of harems. And, the Umayyads were the one that spread faith through the sword a lot. Now, they expanded the caliphate a lot. The Rashidiyun did conquer Yemen, did conquer the Levant, and did conquer Persia. But pretty much the Umayyads went downhill, and the Ottomans were the final nail in the coffin. They were so corrupt and so horrible. Oh my God. Personally now, as a Muslim, I wouldn't mind religious rule. An Islamic republic, a caliphate. However, it is not possible to happen now. We are so divided. We are like 72 different currents in the Islamic faith. We are so... the Rashidiyun did get Egypt and the Levant. No. I don't think the Rashidiyun reached Egypt. No. It was the Umayyads that expanded past Egypt. Is there a widely considered worst caliph? Now, I have a little bit of a bias here. I'd say... Yazid Bani Umayyah. Pakistan tried the whole Islamic pan-republic, and look what they did to Bangladesh. Yeah, unfortunately. I do believe that religion and socialism can coexist, and religious rule can be established. That's what some Demarchists believe. Demarchists, or the fourth positionist, not to be confused with Dugin's fourth position. The Demarchists are different. The Demarchists believe in true democracy that stems from faith and from the people, and alongside socialist lines and pan-liberation ethos, pan-Arabism, pan-Islamism, pan-Africanism, and the likes. Unity, unity, echoes of unity, and calls to brotherhood and stability. And I would not mind that, but currently I don't see it happening. Especially where I live, I do believe secularism is the way to go, but not the French type of secularism. I don't want to attack religiosity in society. I want to protect it, but I do want to break this collaboration between the merchants of faith and the capitalist elites. Now, in terms of, I don't know, Al-Mahdi Al-Muntazar, Asallallahu Fajr Sharif, he's the Messiah for the Muslims. For the Shiites, he was born and he's now in hiding, waiting to return. For the Sunnis, he is yet to reveal himself. But pretty much before Judgment Day, Al-Mahdi and Jesus will come together and fight injustice in the world, usher in an age of prosperity and peace and justice to all. And And then Judgment Day happens, eventually after like 40 years or so, Judgment Day happens, calamities strike, so on and so forth, and then we're all standing in front of our Maker being judged. I do like this idea, I do like this idea, and I do hope, as a religious person, I do hope when Al-Mahdi shows up, returns, or shows up with the second coming of Jesus Christ, I do hope that I be one of his followers, and not not of the followers of the Antichrist. And speaking of the Antichrist, let's all agree that Kissinger is the representation of the Antichrist. That fucker is still alive. Kissinger is the Antichrist. Ronald Reagan was the devil. Ron DeSantis nowadays is the devil. And Ariel Sharon was a demon of pestilence, war, and fear. I said it. Excuse the noises. It's the chair I'm sitting on. It's a little bit quirky. Makes a lot of creaking noises. My throat is a little bit dry. Tomorrow, tomorrow me will not be happy with tonight me's decisions. But this is something that has been. Which pan-Arab leader had the best chance of forming a lasting state? Abdel Nasser, hands down. Abdel Nasser. Abdel Nasser is a guy that reached socialism organically. By 1962, it had appeared that Egypt's only way forward is socialism, and then the government started building 5-year plans to transform Egypt into the socialist economy and adopt more socialist policies. It was under Nasser, it was state capitalist. It never reached the position to realize socialism, unfortunately. With all the pressure it was under, with the death of Nasser, with the War of 67 diverting attention to military needs for the War of Attrition. But Abdel Nasser was a huge icon, was who had immense popularity, and did create a system that supported African struggles, Arab struggles, and Muslim struggles. He was the only person, the only he led the only true effort to form a pan-Arab state, a unitary state, the United Arab Republic. However, the problem with the UAR, it was not Egyptian domination. The problem with the UAR is that the Syrian conservative elites wanted to use Nasser's popularity to strike down the communists within Syria. So the communists in Syria and Lebanon, they were not opposed to pan-Arabism. Communists were pan-Arabs, were pan-Arabists as well. However, because communism, socialism, and pan-Arabism was on the rise in the Arab world after Abdel Nasser pretty much defeated the tripartite aggression in 1956 and secured the Suez Canal, the Syrian elite feared for itself. So it rode the wave of the pan-Arab fever, the Nasser's fever, and once they united, they struck down the communists and socialists in Egypt, in Syria, and then blamed Egypt and separated from it because basically they gotten what they wanted from the unity with Egypt. Unfortunately, the Ba'ath Party did also attack Abdel Nasser out of the blue, but Abdel Nasser eventually did work with the Ba'ath Party, supported them. The Ba'ath regime in Syria sent them weapons, strengthened Syria's military to fight Israel together in 1973. There could have been no 1973 without Abdel Nasser's plans. And Abdel Nasser did build an interesting system that was built somewhat in Yemen, Libya, Sudan, and Iraq. and there were legitimate Syrian, Egyptian, Iraqi plans for unification, but the Ba'ath Party then couped the Nasserist regime in Iraq. And then, there were some talks about unifying Syria and Iraq into one state, but then Saddam Hussein couped the Ba'ath Party, and yeah, it's just a bad series of coups and anti-coups. Then Gaddafi have any chance of reforming the UAR, and Nasser defeating the tripartite easily one of the best 20th century. It is. And Arab nationalism has always been rooted into progressivism and social policies. So it was a matter of time before Arab national liberation movements would just adopt socialism. So Abdel Nasser, unfortunately, after Abdel Nasser died and Sadat took over, became the sole leader of the country and dismantled the Nasser system. The Ba'ath Party used the economic plans the Nasser system put in Iraq, but it was the Ba'ath who took credit. In Sudan, the Nasser system was in place under Ja'far Nimeri. However, after a successful communist coup followed by a counter coup to restore Ja'far al-Nimeri, Nimeri basically cut ties with the USSR and adopted capitalist policies and jumped into the lap of the United States. As for Libya went from a Nasserist regime to the Jamahiriya regime. Now, some argue that Jamahiriya was better, some argue Nasserism was better, and to me, I do find Nasserism to be better because Jamahiriya, even though it started off good, Gaddafi kind of went cuckoo towards the end. So, the US response and Hungary set the international stage for the defeat of Israel, France, and the UK. If the US let the tripartite win, they could have won. We can't also diminish the fighting spirit of the Egyptian people and the fighting spirit of the Egyptian government. A lot of people would like to diminish those and say, this is not really an Arab win without this and that. There was a certain geopolitical climate going on between the superpowers. However, the war was also expensive on the UK, even without American or Soviet interference. Egypt would have won because, number one, the French and British economy were suffering, and their people were not really liking the war. Number two, Israel is not capable of sustaining a long military campaign in densely populated areas. That has been proved through history. Egypt, for example, Israel is good for quick attacks, lightning strikes, bombing the shit out of a country, moving through deserts and vast open fields, breaking down armies and military. They do. It's either lightning strikes or scorched earth before rolling in with tanks, or they start bombing civilians to put pressure on the military and the resistance movements. These are the Israeli military doctrine throughout the decades, and it has been challenged a lot of times. For example, they cannot sustain a battle in Cairo, so they'd lose because they can't sustain a battle in a densely populated area. For example, the IDF in 1982 reached Beirut, besieged the city, expelled the PLO under agreement that there will not be massacres to Palestinian refugees. These massacres did happen, and the Israelis didn't get to stay long in Beirut. After they got in, the local population started resisting. It took them three separate shooting operations on IDF personnel and officers, and Israel instantly took the decision to retreat out of the city. Pretty much, the Israelis cannot sustain a fight in densely populated areas. So sooner or later, sooner or later the Egyptians would have won. And let's also, lest we forget that there was also Syrians fighting in that war. Syrian naval officers in Egypt studying there and training on new ships. One of them, Jules Yusuf Jamal, who sacrificed himself to land a critical hit on a French warship, because he believed today it's going to bomb Alexandria, tomorrow it's going to bomb Latakia, where he comes from. He was an Orthodox Christian. What are Lebanon's main problems at the moment, and in your opinion, what is the best way to solve them? Okay, Lebanon's main problems would be sectarianism, inflation, systematic corruption, the lack of production and the lack of plans for production, and stagnation. There is no reform. There is opportunists that like to dabble into bullshit in politics. We have no president. Our government is not a functional one because it doesn't have the powers of an actual government. It only have administrative powers to get things done in administrations and not take actual decisions, because it's an obsolete government, and we need to vote for a new president to form a new one. Until now, the government hasn't been reformed. So these are the many woes of Lebanon. Of course, Israel is an existential threat to everyone in the region. I do believe so the way I see it is to end sectarianism in politics. This is the solution: is to strike against the black market racketeers that play on the exchange rate and the inflation, to manage to lower the inflation and the exchange rate between the American dollar and the Lebanese lira, to enforce price control on merchants so that the prices lower as well as the exchange rate. Seek cheaper oil deals and gas deals from Iran to keep water and electricity running 24/7. That would reduce a lot of the problems that Lebanon has, as well as keeping good relations with the neighbors. This is a good chance because right now Iran and the Gulf states are having a honeymoon of sorts. And Lebanon can, after sacking corrupt officials and doing these changes without taking austerity measures, because austerity measures are destructive. They can try to convince, international monetary institutions to lend them money, so the government can invest it into agriculture so they can achieve food stability, and start working more closer with Syria, for example. Negotiate with Syria for the Syrian refugees to come back to Syria. That way, it's a better step to normalize relations with Syria once and for all, because there are some people that don't like that idea and want to go through the UN, and the UN is stalling and stalling and stalling. So the Lebanese government should talk with the Syrian government. And the Syrian refugees, once they're back in Syria, it should be a plan. They shouldn't be thrown out of the border and into the wilderness. This is fucking inhumane. No, these are people with human rights. Camps should be built, temporary camps, until the Syrian government can relocate them into houses, back to their homes. But that would diminish the financial woes on the Lebanese government, because it's less mouths to feed, practically speaking. Of course, after food stability is achieved, we can redirect, and Lebanon can redirect funds back to producing oil and gas from its waters, which can help cover domestically. Selling them outside is not gonna make much money nowadays, but it will cover the domestic side of things. This is a plan of action that should be taken step by step. It's like a 5-year plan, 10-year plan. once you have all the agriculture is stable, you've got power running, you can start industrializing more and more, you can start getting more armed and ready to fight against outside threats that hinder sovereignty. Lebanon does more to protect refugee rights internationally than most of the West, unless they're Ukrainian, i.e. white. Well, I'm not. Well, listen. When it comes to Ukrainian refugees on both sides, my heart goes out for them. Some people can be bad, can be desecrating Holocaust memorials, for example. But I don't judge all of them. And some people might get the wrong idea from the video that is featured on my channel at the front page. But no, I am simply against the racist attitudes that some of corporate media can express, and the double standards. Even though this double standards, is understandable because it's politics at the end of the day. It's not, but it's I when I made this, I made it out of anger. It was a reaction to this injustice, this disregard of humanity in favor of politics. And it's not on the Ukrainian people. No, 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 no. It's not on the Ukrainians. Be it on the western side or the eastern side. I oppose the authoritarian regime in Ukraine and the imperialist regime in Russia. My heart goes out to the people of Ukraine and the people of Russia. But yeah, you see, this double standards can be seen because of politics, and I despise that. And that's why I made that video. And when I say the West, I mean their institutions, their corporations, people in power, people who hold power, and not the common folks at all. Because fundamentally, there's nothing that is different between me and an American. An American who is also oppressed by his own country, the same country that bombs my people, leaves their own people to freeze to death. Oh, my neck. Um, Speaking of religion, next month is the month of the Virgin Mary, Our Lady, the Virgin Mary, Maryam al-Adra, for our Christian brothers and sisters, and June is the month of Jesus for the Catholics. So there's that. And yeah, it's the difference between the events of the Easter when it comes to Islam and Christianity. In Christianity, Jesus did get crucified. As for Muslims, there was a crucifixion, but it was that of a man that looked like Jesus, while Jesus actually was saved from such a fate by God and ascended to heaven. Yeah, it pisses everybody off, these political choices regardless of humanity. Personally, I despise bloodshed. I've seen people who, because they hate American imperialism, well, a Serbian person in particular, that person was, they do support acts of terrorism against the United States of America, such as 9/11, and no, I oppose that mentality. These are common folks, these are people that hold no power, that are being attacked. This is not rightful or justifiable actions. This is not self-defense, this is mindless murder. Self-defense would be fighting an occupying force. you know, not not going overseas and killing people. Christ was saved in Islamic. I love that. Uh, well, I wouldn't say Muslims are true Christians, but pretty much it is the Abrahamic faith. The Abrahamic religions are messages that it's the same message that has gotten upgraded, and Islam is pretty much the final form of that message in the Abrahamic faith. I've recently been watching Daredevil, the 2015 Netflix series, Daredevil, and Daredevil in it is a Catholic. You know, at the start of the series, Catholic Christian who a lawyer by day that protects the poor, that helps the poor and the disenfranchised, and a vigilante at night that helps people from organized crime. It really spoke to me. You know, I feel Daredevil is really a hero of the people, a superhero that represents the people, a socialist superhero, if you want to say. That's what I like to believe. I once had a Dutch professor present to me an article that essentially accused Islam of being a Jewish sect. That was a wild one. Oh my god. There's someone that I once met, a 15-year-old Turkish Gaddafist on the Arab leftists server, that said that the Shia Muslims are a sect of Judaism, and that Hezbollah fighting Israel is inter-Jewish in fighting. Oh my, I had a backache. Not a headache, a backache from this bullshit. I swear. Funny thing about the Dutch, there was this this Islamophobic Dutch politician who wanted to write a book how Islam is not only a threat to Europe or the West, but a threat to the entirety of the world and should be eliminated. He started researching Islam and then found out that Islam made more sense and eventually converted to Islam. That was a wild ride. Only socialist superheroes are the heroes of the Soviet Union. Well, I wouldn't say that. Soviet Union don't have a monopoly on socialism. It sure was an interesting socialist experiment, but it doesn't have the monopoly on socialism, and socialism rises to the material conditions of each and every other society. So socialism that rose in the Soviet Union was different from probably the socialism in the Arab world, or socialism in China, or socialism in Cuba. But when it comes to, you know, something within Marvel, for example, I see Daredevil in the 2015 version to be akin to socialism, because I would not spoil it. I really recommend watching it, but you have people helping each other, um, someone who defends people both day and night through the law and through means outside of the law, pretty much going by any means necessary. By any and all means necessary. Just what Malcolm X said, huh? Fighting for the people, fighting, and in season one there's a very visible class struggle between the middle class, the lower classes, and witch fucks that control the criminal underworld. It's a really a fun watch, and I do recommend it. The Dutch have a deep history of sectarianism. At its height, 150 years ago, it was very extreme, entirely separate institutions, etc. Even trade unions were all sectarians. Oh yeah, unfortunately, you see in some places certain political parties that represent certain religious groups are controls this union or that union. It is really a sad state of affairs in a lot of places where sectarianism is an issue. I mean, everything that goes on in the past does leave an everlasting effect, whether it is positive or negative. Be it a positive thing or a negative thing, whether we keep that negative or we realize it's negative and progress past it. That's also, everything in our history does leave an effect into the future. Things don't happen just like that. As I said at the start of the stream, you weren't here. I said that I refuse to believe that this world hasn't been created, that this entire world is an accident, because everything has a beginning, development, and an end. Everything has a reason. There's no coincidences. There's no coincidences in how the world functions and how nature happens and how these incredible details work. I would have wished that more people had joined at the start of the stream, so we can talk a lot more about these things early. And Cat, I really appreciate your viewership. We believe that empirical evidence is the only answer to the question of the start of life. Empirical evidence. Let me Google that really quick. I think I know what it means, but I need to refresh my memory. Empiric evidence. Empirical evidence. The information obtained through observation and documentation of certain behavior and patterns or through an experiment. I mean, listen, if you look and observe the world that's around you and see how it functions, discover how it works, and how really to the minute detail, you on your own will realize this can't be a coincidence. This can't be a coincidence. No, you realize that something is great. There's something that we don't understand that is greater than us, and we as humans, we are curious creatures, and there's a lot of things that we yet don't understand about our own presence, our own existence, and our own personality, as well as the world that we inhabit, be it the Earth or the cosmos. So just to say that we can definitely say yes or no, you know, is really arrogant of us. However, I believe, from seeing all of this evidence around us, all this details, how the world works, this mystery of the world, there's only one explanation, that there is a higher power that we don't understand completely. Maybe we shouldn't understand completely. Now, this is where our faith derives from. And I do believe that a lot of societies do analyze these things and try to build answers for these questions. That's why there are different religions. That's why there are different interpretations of religions. And there's a saying over here, كل واحد عدينه الله يعينه. Everybody, according to his religion, may God help them. Everybody has their religion. Everybody follow the doctrine they follow. Everybody follow the line of thought they follow. Well, good for them. As long as they don't attack anybody else, we can all coexist peacefully. You do you, I'll do me. We'll not hinder each other's life. We can discuss like civilized human beings, but we shouldn't fight like barbarians. Doesn't billions of years of chance look a lot like coincidence? No, I don't think so. Billions of years of chance. Well, here's also an interesting argument. Some people say that in creationism, we believe that God made the world in 7 days. He made the world and humans. But was it a day to God? It could have been millions of years in the creation of the world. And also, there's the fact that God created the Garden of Eden, at first. So maybe he also created the world separately. But these are diving way more into theology, and I'm not, the most qualified to talk about theology. Though, funny enough, one of our neighbors once saw me dressed all in black because I had my pants were black, my sweater was black. It's warm, and black absorbs light, so it makes you warmer. But it's just a coincidence. My warm clothes are usually black or gray. Not that is a coincidence. Um, and I had my beard. I had a full beard. Now I have, a gentle scruffy beard because I shaved, but like a stubble of sorts, but it's growing. But I had my full beard, and I was studying like I was studying commercial law, the law of commerce, and one of our neighbors knocked on the door. They wanted to talk to my parents, my mother. I tell her my mom was at work, so I tell her in formal Arabic, in Fusha, mother isn't here right now, but I will tell her that you asked for her. And I did not even notice myself saying it. Next time she saw my mom, she asked, does your son study religious doctrine or something? And my mom was like, what? Is there much Greek legacy in Lebanon or merely topographical names? I'd say the remnants of, the ancient Greek civilization. I'd say it's more Phoenician, not Greek. But they're close, kind of close. But we have a lot of ruins from all sorts of civilizations throughout history. It's just topographical names, ruins from ancient civilizations. But there is a certain party in Lebanon, a very small, irrelevant party that is pretty much a Byzantium LARP, or like an old Greek LARP thing. Yeah, probably that. Yeah. I mean, nowadays we're more Arab. I'd say our culture has been massively influenced the Arabs by Arabs, and the Arab identity is an identity that surpasses ethnicity, surpasses race. It's an identity. It's an identity of a culture. It's a cultural identity. It's a linguistic identity. It's an identity of a people that has been disunited through colonialism, that had the same colonial past of oppression and resistance, that also have the same future. And their interests should align in most cases, because the best for the entire Arab world is when all of the Arabs have their interests aligned. Can you post the Wikipedia page of that Byzantine LARP party in chat, please? It's okay if there isn't an English page for it. Let me just Google it real quick. What was its name again? The Mashriq, the Mashriq Party Lebanon. The Lebanese minor parties. Let's look at the list of political parties and determine which one is which. And soon enough, I'll have to end this stream because my throat is annoying me. March 8 Alliance, March 14 Alliance, non-alliances in a state, civic nationalism, progressivism, secularism, democracy, Christian democracy, centrism, liberalism, حزب الديمقراطي الاشتراكي Islamic Socialism the National Bloc Lebanese Nationalism حزب the Green حزب التحرير it's an offshoot of Al-Qaeda حزب Phoenicia Phoenician Nationalism holy fucking shit we have a Phoenician Law Party Socialist Arab Lebanon Vanguard Party oh those are the Iraqi Ba'athists Lebanese Nationalism Etienne Thaqr Etienne Thaqr this is the head of the Lebanese Renewal Party which was these Nazis Aramean Democratic Organization Arameanism National Conservative Christian Democracy which is nationalism pro-Europeanism Lihaki left libertarianism grassroots democracy economic democracy radical democracy Lihaki from my right okay Lebanese Democratic Movement Lebanese Option Party Lebanese Front Liberty Front Najadi Party New Lebanese Movement Arab Socialist Party Lebanese Ecology Party Popular Democratic Party Lebanese Arab Movement Organization of Communist Action Kurdish Democratic Party Raskari Party which is a Kurdish nationalist party defunct parties Al-Tanzim Constitutional Bloc Syrian Lebanese Communist Party Arab Liberation Socialist Action Party Lebanon Party of Socialist Revolution oh weird it's not here I could have swore it was there hold on Lebanese Byzantine Party make the for fuck's sake Eastern Party well just know that just take my word for it take my word for that they exist I've been talking for 2 hours and 40 minutes what is the Phoenician Party platform well there's no link for the actual party but it is listed and I think it's just some stupid small party like anyone can two people can form a fucking party and call it a day and I doubt the English Wikipedia have I should have checked the Arabic Wikipedia hold on but I think it's like the Phoenician Lebanese list of parties lots of political parties and 9 languages let's go for Arabic the Arabic version of it okay they even have pictures for leaders حزب الوعد there's far more حزب الرامجار these are Armenian parties let's see Democratic Party Union Party the PNO I love the PNO جمعية المشاريع الخيرية الإسلامية المرابطون حركة الشعب I love also حركة الشعب نجاح وكيم formed it I love that party حركة الوحدويين الناصرين جبهة العمل الإسلامي حزب التوحيد العربي الحزب اللبناني حزب اللبنانيين الجدد there is nothing here There is nothing here. Yes, there are a lot of Armenians in Lebanon, especially around Burj Hammoud, uh, the area of Burj Hammoud, and it is known to have a lot of Armenians. Armenian militias like Asala had fought against the IDF during their invasion of Lebanon. One of Armenia's national heroes, Monte Malkomian, actually fought against Zionist occupation in Lebanon alongside the PLO and the Lebanese resistance. There are a lot of Armenians in Lebanon, yes. There are a lot to the point there are two different parties for them, and they do have seats in parliament reserved for them as minorities. So yes, Armenians do have a place. A lot of people in Lebanon. Well, I hope to sleep well. I'm not sure if you take requests, but it would be great to see you do more CML or Crisis Achievement runs. Well, CML, Crisis is. I'm waiting for Crisis 2 to see how it plays out. Crisis 1 is not my favorite game. At all not my favorite game. It's really tedious and annoying. As for CML is good, but it's long. If I'd have to sit for like 5 hours for an achievement run if I want it to be perfect. And it's exhausting. It's really exhausting. It's something that I don't want to get into. As for Collapse, it's the same thing. It's a long playthrough. It's a fun game, but I won't chase achievements the same way I chase them in CML or Nostalgie. However, I do think I want to stream the mystical scenario. Fighting Mr. L. I wonder who the fuck it can be. Probably an homage to H.P. Lovecraft. Totally an homage to H.P. Lovecraft. So yeah, I think I don't want to stream Nostalgie or any Kremlin games in the future. Take a rest. I will finish the Soviet-Afghan split. I'm just trying to find a strategy for it, and if I can't pull it off, I'll just drop in the towel and say I tried, couldn't do it. There's no shame in that. I'll just give the ending and be done with it, because the problem with the Soviet-Afghan split is there's a lot of micromanaging to be done, and you survive a phase, the next stick kills you. So it's really living on knife's edge. So yeah, I think excuse me, I would have loved to continue talking, but my throat just can't make it. No, my throat can't handle it anymore. War Fortress before? No, I don't think so. I might check it later on in my free time. Thank you all for watching. Watching currently, such as you, Bodycat, or watching at a later time, as most people would do. Unfortunately, we didn't have much an audience today. Hopefully, next month we will. As always, thank you all for watching, and hopefully next time we get to discuss with far more people on far more topics. And I'm really grateful for you all. Ramadan Kareem, and happy Easter. Enjoy your holidays, ladies and gentlemen, and peace be upon you.